thinking about it a few days ago in the sense that, everybody goes, everybody loves Warren Buffett. And then they go, Warren Buffett says you should index, therefore you should index. And my question is always like, what does Warren Buffett do? Does he index? No. So do you listen? What kind of advice do you listen to? You listen to what people say, not what they do. But what it was interesting. So I was thinking about that. And then on the pod, Cliff and Jim start talking about how they both recommend indexing. But then I think Jim was the first one to bring it up. It's like, is that contradictory? And they both think it's not, even though, so they both do not index. They both do very, other various quant, different systems and different strategies they run. But it's an interesting conundrum to me. I think it's contradictory to recommend indexing if that's not what you do. It's do as I say, not as I do. But I can understand the other side of the argument.
This is a really tough one for me.
Yeah.
I certainly don't index.
Right.
I certainly do. I use a bunch of leverage. I run, strategic stock and bond allocations that I overlay with managed futures. I'm comfortable with it. Would I ever recommend to my average friend who could not tell me what stocks are to do the same thing? If there was if I felt that there was an off-the-shelf way for them to do it in a very easy way, and I felt that they could behaviorally stick with it, and I knew that it met their financial plan, maybe, but I'm not their fiduciary, so it's a really gray area. Like, they need to talk to their advisor. Yeah, this is a tough one. Like, the reality is, I am of the opinion markets are generally efficient, and that the market diversified stock and bond portfolio is a tremendous wealth generating vehicle over the long run. It helps complement your human capital to be able to diversify basically into the GDP of the world, GDP growth of the world. Like, people should do that. And the default hypothesis for me is like the market's in an equilibrium state. And yes, probably passive is a good starting point. Do I think most people have the capacity to go beyond that? I don't, actually.
Great. Thank you for saying that. So many things in there. One, if the default is indexing, that means you're giving advice. And so why are you giving advice? Why do you say anything at all? Why just say, I don't know, I can't help you? Because you're telling somebody to do something. You're giving them advice when you shouldn't be. It would be my argument. And then the second thing is, it's like, I wonder too, if it's very pedantic. Right? You're saying, like, look, I think you're a moron. I'm not going to sit here for 5 to 10 hours because I don't care about you enough to even start to explain things, let alone the 100 or 1,000 hours it would take. So in essence, you're basically saying, hey, I think you're an idiot, so I think therefore you should index. But also you're choosing a path with indexing too. That, like, is that the right path for that person? I'm not so certain. So when you were bringing up a philosophical conundrum, I thought you were going to bring up like the trolley problem or something. And you know how I am. It's like, I always wonder that trolley problem, they give you an A or B question. When isn't there an option C? Like, why do you have to do anything? Can't you just stand there and watch everything go down?
Or can you stop the trolley? I don't know. Why can't anyone?
No, like, why do you have to make a choice at all? Like,
right. Is a lack of choice, is choosing the default, right? I think in finance, we would argue passive is the default choice. Is the default choice a choice, or is going off the default really the active choice? That's a tough one. I agree with you that there are many choices that can be made, and the more people who go active, it actually changes the composition of passive by definition. It's a push and pull system. Passive is just, you're basically getting a free ride on the work of active managers, and you hope there's sufficient active managers to do the work to make passive efficient. You want all those active managers competing with each other so that passive can get a good free ride. Passive can go wrong. I mean, active managers got it, in my opinion, in hindsight, really wrong in 2000 with the tech bubble, and passive rode it all the way up and all the way down.
As you know, there's an ergodicity problem though too, and you're saying over the long haul, then you should be passive indexing. But why wouldn't the choice be just hold cash? Like, you're saying, you're telling them to hold in cash, they should be investing. And you know as well as I do, there's lost decades of being underwater.
You're doing a little loopy-doop on me. If we're talking, let's set a base case here. If they're saying, I want to invest in stocks, if they've already made that step, right? Am I going to say, oh, you should be a value investor? Oh, you should be a momentum investor? Oh, you should do a multi-factor defensive style portfolio? Or am I just going to say, do you want to just buy the S&P? Right? Buy the Russell 2000 and the Russell 1000. Buy the Russell 3000 if you can, right? Cheap, low cost ETF, keep allocating, keep working on your human capital, because probably that's where you're going to make most of your money. Like, if they're not truly interested in this stuff, I don't know. I'm not sure if they're qualified to make the decision.